6:41. Welcome back to Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago right here on CTV. That's the shot of the Beetham Highway heading into Port of Spain at the moment. As you see bumper-to-bumper traffic, as one would expect today. That's the traffic cam kind of swerving out to give us a long view. It is bumper-to-bumper heading from east, west, north, and south, so please be careful on the nation's roads. As you go, school is out today, first day of the new school term, so please be careful as you go. Keep it right here on CTV for updates on how this new school term transitioned for the young ones. In this segment, we have our friends from the Unit Trust Corporation. Today, we're talking about how to plan for losing your job. Yeah, I know it may sound like a misnomer, but yes, sometimes these things do happen, and it will in fact impact your investment and your savings and your lives in general. Our guests are Investment Center Manager with the UTC, Janice Jackman, and also holding the same portfolio, Jessica Howard-Seymour. Good morning, ladies. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Paul.
Happy Independence. A little belated, but all right.
Definitely.
Let's start with you, Janice. When someone says you need to plan for your job loss or possible job loss or significant changes in your financial affairs, how do you start to do that?
Paul, as we know, I mean, these are turbulent times, and a job loss can be a traumatic experience for any one of us, because for the average person like myself, a job loss will mean a drastic change in our financial well-being, our financial planning, and therefore it's something that you need to consider. We don't want you to be at the point where it is that only when it happens you are now planning, and that's why we are here from the Unit Trust Corporation this morning to give what we consider to be some very insightful tips or basic plans, and it's really basic, what you should be doing from now, not waiting for that time when it happens and then you are now in really a desperate situation, and you are making plans that really would not turn out to the best for you. Because,
well, it's almost like too late.
Correct.
We don't want that. Jessica, most people would say, well, I live month to month or fortnight to fortnight. You know, how do I start even wrapping my mind around considering job loss where there's no income coming in and I really haven't prepared myself? Is the answer, well, you should start preparing now while you have the job?
Absolutely. Paul, at the Unit Trust, we say the best time to plan for a job loss is while you have a job and you have the resources to put things in place. So what we would suggest is that you have an emergency fund of 6 to 8 months living expenses. And you can invest that in our income fund where there is regular income and you have easy access. Additionally, we say practice being frugal, so that if you are the only income earner, you live just below your means, so that you can look at your budget, look and see what expenses you have and where you can cut from, and you can use those savings towards short and long-term investment. Additionally, if you have 2 incomes in the home, you can practice living on 1 income and save the other one. Additionally, what we say to look at your debt, practice minimum debt, so that if there is unexpected income loss, you don't have to be, really running your head as to what you're going to do. And additionally, pay off your credit card when it becomes due.
Or don't have one. Or try as much as possible not to abuse it, or not to use it for wants and not needs.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Janice, let's talk about the 6 to 8 or 9 months lean that one should aspire to have, in the context of also understanding that you at the UTC have been advising us to also put aside investments as opposed to savings, or in addition to savings, and considering your mortgage, your car note, your children's needs, etc. How do we balance all these numbers, crunch all these numbers in our heads?
And that's why the budget is so important. Each time we visit here, one of the things that we keep telling our audience is that you need to budget, because only when you see that on paper and you can actually visualize, you understand that definitely I will need to apportion some towards my savings, some towards my investment. And to bring further clarification, what we talk about savings is really things for the short term. So short to medium term. When we're talking about investment, we're looking for more the long term. So you're looking at towards your retirement. So what you need to consider for the person who may have the potential job loss, you need to consider your age at that point in time. So where would you be directing more of your funds? For the younger folks, what you need to do is more long-term planning. So you will direct a larger portion towards your long-term for like your retirement. You want to purchase a home, even though you may be young and you may have children, so you want to prepare for your children's education. And for the short term, we're looking at, as Jessica said, it's for the more or less the contingency. So you will need to pay your mortgage, because during the what we could say the average expectation to actually secure another job is sometimes probably 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
And especially in these times, it may be even longer. So you need to make sure that you can cover those essential things like your mortgages, your car plans, and so forth. So you need to make sure that you put aside. For the not so young person, what you need to consider is that you may need more monies in the short term. So you'll probably put a larger amount there, but you're still going to consider the long term. So you need to consider where you are financially at that point in time. But what we want to stress on is it's not something that you should consider only at that point in time. And as you said at the beginning, is that while we're considering job loss, this could be for anything, because it could be a matter of health and so forth. So it's just about planning and being prudent and putting your financial plans in place for any eventuality. So therefore you will be prepared to deal with the situation.
Jessica, how important is it to get into young people's heads as you graduate college or as you start working? That's the best time to start. As opposed to 30, 40, 50 down the road, when you think you have less time, or when you know you have less time. And sometimes being very young gives you a sense of invincibility. Well, I have time. And people don't realize how quickly time flies.
Yes, it does. So that we say from the time you start to work, you start planning. You start putting aside money for long-term investment, because the thing is, you have time on your side. And having time on your side, you can now put things in place that will give you that cushion.
Do you think young people actually get how valuable that time is? 20 to 30 to 40, that 20 or 30 year span between 20 and 50 years old, and what you can do in terms of really preparing yourself for 50 and beyond?
Well, the thing about it is that programs like these that we have, we go into workplaces, we advise, Unit Trust as a corporate citizen continue to do these programs, and we go to your workplaces, we go to anywhere you would invite us, we'll go and send this information out, because education is very important. And once you have the information and you utilize it, well, then you have a head start.
Let's talk about the types of instruments available in terms of their versatility, their immediate access to funds if you need them, as opposed to the medium and long-term instruments available at the Unit Trust Corporation.
Okay, when we speak about the short term, we want specifically to mention our TT Income Fund. Jessica alluded to it in the beginning, where it is a fund that has easy access to your monies. You have returns coming in on, we calculate returns daily and credited to your account quarterly. Added to which you have a Visa Electron debit card, which you can have easy access. Now, there are no penalties with this account, because you're thinking about a contingency fund, so therefore you will need to access that at any given time.
So this is not a saving fund, because you actually accrue interest on the investment.
Certainly, yes. And therefore,
but you have access to the funds.
Convenience, and there are no penalties. And added to this fund is there is no restrictions as to how much you can keep with your account. So you can draw that down to zero, because as I said, we know these are really tough times for some of us.
What's the earliest age that someone can actually access the TT Income Fund?
At the age of 18. So for any account that we open, it has to be from the age of 18. If it is that some adults, what they do, they open an account in the parent's name and they have the child as a beneficiary. So when the child reaches the age of 18, that fund could be transferred to the child.
Excellent.
But the TT Income Fund is the best fund that we have for the short term, and that can be in US denomination also. Because again, for instance, sometimes children may be studying abroad, so it may be the best form of sending money to their child abroad when they have the US. That's right, and monitoring. When we're talking about the medium to long term, and we're going into the retirement and the school fund and so forth, we're looking at our growth and income fund. And that fund has a dual basis, where it is that you can earn income with your capital, and then you earn dividends on the account. So therefore, you're looking at capital appreciation, and added to which there's a guarantee. So once you are prepared to leave your funds for 3 years or more, and that's why we stress it's medium to long term.
Yeah, three years.
My apologies. 3 years or more, there's a guarantee. So it's a very secure fund. Our funds are very secure.
And is the onus on you to fix how much time after the 3 years, whether it be 4 years or 5 years, that you want that investment to stay put?
It's all up to you. And while we stress on 3 years, that's our recommendation. You have access, again, it's at your convenience. You have access to the funds, with the exception of like our pension, because we have a few pension plans, and one specifically is the Pension Plus, which has a tax benefit to it. So therefore, and also an annuity. So therefore, it's not an easy access for that fund. And again, it's also because of the discipline. You want to have that discipline that you can't just go back in and interfere with the funds, as the case may be. And that's why we're talking about the job loss here, because at the end of the day, when the job loss, the situation occurs, sometimes we act in a very desperate
Yeah,
way.
because at that point you don't know.
That's
you don't
right.
know what you're going to do.
Don't want to go. So you dip into the long-term fund, you dip into the child's fund, and it's not the most prudent thing to do.
Yeah.
Once you consider all the planning that goes beforehand, then you will be in a better place. You'll be able to manage this whole situation much more prudently, and then you will be able to transition.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Jessica. Maybe you can take this one. Many people would say, well, I have a retirement fund. Well, I have the Children's University Fund that can mitigate. I can dip into if I lose my job. That is not the best way to go. Those are for specific reasons.
Yes.
And you should also have a separate fund, an emergency, if you might want to call it that, that could hold you up for 6 to 9 months if you do lose your job. This is something completely separate.
Yes, because you still have to live. Even though you have lost your job, you still have to live. So that we suggest that you have a separate fund, that is the emergency fund, and those other funds, the education, the children's fund that you would want for the children's education. And the mistake some people make is to dip into those. So you would want to avoid doing that, so that it's important. The planning is essential. So you have that put aside, so that the emergency fund, that is what you're tapping into.
When you're calculating how much you should be putting aside for that emergency fund, that job loss, that catastrophe, if you want to call it, crisis fund. Let me not just say catastrophe, because if you plan properly, it's not a catastrophe,
Yes,
it's a crisis.
Cushion it, yes.
Yeah. How should you apportion it in terms of payment, continuous payments for mortgage, grocery bills, utilities, etc., vis-a-vis in terms of percentage of your salary? And also, do you also put aside enough money that you can continue investing in the other funds, or should those be suspended?
Well, in the terms of a job loss, well, you would have had to plan before, so that while you have the job, now is the time to put aside your 10%. That I mentioned earlier. That
should take care of your mortgage.
The savings would be the 10%.
Okay.
And then maybe your mortgage might be more. Your mortgage may be 20% of your salary, or whatever it is. So you would want to look at your investors, look at your creditors rather, and maybe reorganize your mortgage in terms of payment, delaying the payment a bit until you have another job.
So this is specifically for day-to-day living arrangements.
Yes, there's the emergency fund, and also too in that fund you might be able to get something for your mortgage as well.
If you have the means to do that.
If you have the means
if you have the means and you have a pretty good salary while you have the job, maybe you should also consider putting aside 3 to 4 months mortgage.
Yes.
To keep you going in that regard.
Right. So that's why we suggest that you sit and you keep looking at your budget, and the budget is a living action, is a living thing. You keep looking at it all the time. It is a living document.
Remember, we think a budget is we do it now and it lasts 10 years.
No, you keep looking at it all the time. Every 3 months you look at your budget. You look and see where you would have had your own personal financial goals. So you look at where you are, you look at where you want to go, and then you keep adjusting accordingly. Bearing in mind, we talk about the living expense, the emergency fund. You have to cater for your pension down the road. You have to mention for the look at the children's education fund. You look at your medical, anything that may come up. So planning is the key to all of this.
Janice, for persons who job loss entails a voluntary separation package, like we see going on in some aspects of TSCT or other companies. How should one manage that? Because that's more, you have more control over that. But you get a lump sum. How should you apportion that in terms of, well, I know I'm leaving a job. I may not be sure about having a job, but I get a pretty sizable sum at that point.
And again, it all depends on your financial goals. So where we would want to see it, budgeting and planning is important, which is the basic foundation. It all depends on your financial goals. So some people, they may be, as you said, they can probably go into their own business.
You get $700,000.
Yes, so you may start about your own business. So you know that, okay, a large sum of that will go towards investing in my own business. For some of us...
But even before that, you take care of your business. Your own business.
That's right. And you still need to partner for those areas that you know that you will have to be committed, financial commitments on a monthly or weekly basis, as the case may be. So it's all about apportioning the funds depending on your goals and your objectives, and then everything will fall into place, because it makes no sense, Paul, and that's why we keep stressing on planning, that you wait until the time when you're collecting. Then I'm now wondering, all right, what is the best approach here? And we want to add also, we have our financial advisory service this department. And we have our efficient expert advisors there that can actually give information, give you alternative solutions and options. And even at our investment centers, you can come in and we have our team there that can offer that sort of advice and
guide you through the process. We have 90 seconds left. Mistakes to absolutely avoid. If we get 3 mistakes, 2 from Jessica and 1 from Janice.
Okay, well, avoid cashing in your pension savings, your long-term savings, dipping into the
panicking and going to cash the
as well, and avoid get-rich schemes. And don't burn your bridges, because you may need that same network and a reference for a rehire soon.
Also, don't curse out your boss when you're in the job.
Absolutely.
Say thank you, have a nice day, appreciate what you've done for me, and move on gracefully.
That's right. And I would say one of the critical things is that the failure to plan. You need to plan, because most of the time for all of us, it's not something that happens just like that. We have some kind of notification, we have some kind of little warning signs, and the failure to plan will put us in a very desperate
shouldn't wait for the warning signs. No, it may come at some point.
That's right.
And if it doesn't come, say thank you, Lord, and use the money somewhere else.
That's right.
Yes.
All right, ladies, thank you so much. Always a pleasure talking to you. We'll be talking to Janice Jackman and Jessica Howard-Seymour, both investment center managers at the Unit Trust Corporation. That is our show for today. Thank you very much on behalf of the entire team for joining us right here on Good Morning Trinidad Tobago. We'll start with you tomorrow, God willing, at 5:30 a.m. Stay tuned. News is next with Nicola Barrett. Have a good day. Be safe.
Story this morning. Today is the first day of school. As usual, there have been reports of incomplete works, keeping doors closed, and some